caveats, warning, beware. I'll probably do this every day throughout this entire unit, reminding you that most of the work that we do is going to be done on the calculator. But there are some things that we expect to be done by hand. I can tell you, I can promise you, the number one question, the first question on your test will be a system that will ask you to solve it by hand. You will have the choice of being able to solve with either elimination or with substitution. So since you told me that you forgot everything that we did before we left, which is kind of fair, we're going to go back through this again. And then we're going to talk about how the calculator makes the life easier for us. And that's going to be a little bit of a change because it's going to add a different layer of what you're responsible for. So if you were given this system, you have two choices. One choice would be to use, actually what I want to do here is I want to copy this for a second. Hang on, bear with me a second, because we're going to do this problem 2 times. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to take all of this and copy it. Oh well, I'll just do this. Okay, we're going to solve the system by hand. And our two choices are elimination or substitution. Let's cover substitution first. Substitution expects you, well, for actually any technique that you use, expects you to make an intelligent decision about how you want to approach the problem. If substitution is going to work for you, you have to have one variable already isolated with an understood coefficient of a positive 1, or easily be able to isolate it without introducing anything that bothers you in the problem, which would be fractions basically. In this particular exercise, which of the equations would be the most attractive to manipulate to get one variable isolated without introducing fractions?
3y.
Top one? First one? Okay. So if we substitute, then our objective would be to make sure that this problem here isolates for the y variable. And the only reason we're targeting the y variable in that problem is because the y variable had a coefficient of 1 on it already. So there's no division I'm going to have to do, no possible way to get any fractions involved in the problem. So that's the case, then that means that 3x plus y being equal to 10, you would be getting rid of the 3x from both sides of the problem. And that makes y being equal to either 10 minus 3x, nothing wrong with that, or if you didn't like that, there's nothing wrong with saying that you have the minus 3x plus 10. The program doesn't care what the order is. You don't care what the order is, but your first step of solving with substitution might involve you being able to get active and do some manipulation in the problem, some rearranging of furniture, so to speak. Now, if substitution is appropriate, that means that this expression, or this expression, either one, both of these are legitimate representations for the value of y. So any way we look at it, one of those values, one of those representations is coming back into this bottom equation. So we're going to have 2x minus 3 times whatever we're bringing for the y variable in whatever form we want it. And remember that 90% of the time when you do substitution, you create a distributive property. So in this case, do you have a preference, 10 minus 3x or minus 3x plus 10? Does it make a difference to you? Then pick one. 10 minus 3x. Now you got a distributive property over here. Negative 3 gets multiplied across the contents of the problem. So nothing happens with the 2x yet. But now we come up with a minus 30. And then a plus 9x being equal to 8. Okay, this is not working out the way that I wanted it to work, but guess what? We're going to do it anyway. Because life is hard sometimes. Cleaning up my like terms in the problem, 11x minus 30 is equal to 8. And now that means that we need to get the 30 onto the other side of the problem. 11x is equal to 38. We divide by 11. X turns out to be, and unfortunately 38 divided by 11 does not reduce to a lower form. But we don't want a decimal value there. The vast majority of your problems are going to be whole numbers. This one's going to turn out to be a fraction. Doesn't mean a lot of your problems will turn out to be fractions, but it's always a possibility. So just to be prepared with it, two things. I want to show you how powerful and how useful the calculator is going to be at this particular point. If this problem, if this is the value for x, then we know that if we're going to find the value of y, that we need to take this value of x back into one of these two equations, either here or over here, either one. Doesn't make a difference which format we're using to be able to find the y value. So y is equal to 10 minus 3 times this particular value. I know you don't particularly care for fractions. It doesn't make a difference whether you like fractions or not, because your calculator loves fractions. So I would say in this particular problem that I wouldn't even try to work that problem by hand. I wouldn't even try to work out that 3 times 38 over 11. That I would simply tell the calculator, help me with this. 3 times this quantity of 38 divided by 11. And since I know it's not going to be a pretty whole number in a problem, maybe I want a fraction as an answer. So remember that if you have your operation up here, that you can tack the Math-1 key onto the end of that operation to force that to be turned into a fraction, which would be a little bit more palatable. Now, you're not going to have very many problems that give you expressions like this. But in this particular case, if you do get a fraction, which is possible, don't go crazy, don't get frustrated, don't freak out. Let the calculator do what it's strong at. You're going to manage throughout the course, throughout the last topic of this course in here. You're going to spend more time on management and letting the calculator do more of the work for you. But we have to make sure that you could do the work by hand if you didn't have the calculator, which is why the vast majority of the problems you're going to see are going to be nice whole number problems. So we shouldn't see this. But I wanted to see this for 2 reasons. Number 1, it's not a pretty answer, and the calculator takes care of it for us. And number 2, we still have the expectation that we're going to have to do some checking in here. Checking with fractions is not